Well, I guess I'm gonna have to try to splice this together into two parts, since my wife just tried to call me and that dropped my video, unfortunately. Anyhow, it was very polarizing, as you can imagine. And while I am generally in favor of bringing wolves back everywhere where wolves can and should be, the way that this ended up being legislated and the rules that they put into place were problematic for me, and as a result, I'm not happy about the way this was legislated, and then I'm even more unhappy about what I'm seeing on the ground, and particularly how Colorado Parks and Wildlife has handled the project. So they were required under the initiative to put wolves on the ground no later than December of 2023. And the first thing that happened was the surrounding states that had available wolf populations weren't, even though they're killing, their intent is to kill 90% of the wolves in Montana and Idaho, and wolves can be killed in Wyoming through 84% of the state's lands on site any time of the year with no limits and no permits, which is just absurd. It's led to other consequences. We'll talk about Wyoming in another video. Come on, we're gonna go this way. Come on, Kiwi. Kiwi hears the other pups howling and she worries, so she wants to go back and check them. But I'm insisting, I know they're fine. All right, we're gonna make a little progress here and have a little in the woods hike instead of doing laps near the property. Okay, so the first thing was that they initiated something called the 10J rule for this population, which this rule has been the bane of wolf recovery. It's a horrible compromise that was legislated to put the wolves back in Yellowstone, and it cost me my career, my opposition to this rule, because what it did, it's the subtext of the rule is that it labels wolf populations as non-essential and experimental, which is ridiculous. Obviously, they are essential and they're not experimental. They're an essential component of healthy ecosystems. But this compromise led to a lot of expanded management capabilities compared to animals that are fully protected under the Endangered Species Act. And that's problematic because it means that even if wolves, so with Yellowstone, the introduced population was initially distinct from the population of wolves that were recovering via Glacier National Park that had come in naturally from Canada. And because they were protected under ESA, there was a chance that wolf recovery could have proceeded much more slowly, but would have not required any reintroduction and would not have then required the application of the 10J rule. And that rule allows for lethal removal, capture, and confined to captivity. It's a rule that's got problems. It's a rule that makes the ranching community happy, because if they scream and yell and whine and cry baby enough, then the government will actually interfere with the wolves, and I really hate that. And unfortunately, the problem is that once these wolves start spreading out, there is no way to discriminate between the naturally recovering wolves and the reintroduced wolves. And so that means that all wolves everywhere in the western United States are 10J subjects, which is just terrible. It means that, come on, don't roll and stuff. Come on, Mooney, get up. Mooney, get up. Get up. Oh, it's that time of year where there's a lot of bear poop, and they like to roll in the bear poop. Used to stink now. Yep. They like to be stink. So, back to Colorado, now that you know 10J. So, 10J was put into place for this reintroduced population in Colorado, largely at the request of the ranching community there. And there's hundreds of thousands of cattle and sheep on the ground in Colorado, and they're screaming bloody murder about a dozen wolves. It's it's funny that these ranchers, and my family is a ranching family originally, so it's not like it's a foreign concept to me. But these guys all want to claim that they're these iconoclasts of rugged individuality and self-sufficiency. But man, the minute you start talking about wolves, boy, they start screaming like the sky is falling. They're all Chicken Littles. I mean, if you're not capable of running an operation that can sustain 12 wolves on millions of acres of public land, then honestly, guys, you should find another line of work. It's not that tough to do good stewardship and non-lethal. And if your business is so teetering on the edge that if you lose a couple head to a wolf, that it's going to put you under, you got no business in that business. Said as somebody whose family was big in that business. So anyhow, now we're down to the brass tacks of what's going on in Colorado. So they couldn't get the wolves. They finally managed to get those wolves from Oregon. And the composition of the wolves they captured was problematic to me to begin with, because when I put together a matrix of likely breeding pairs, it was extremely limited. The odds were that at most we would have in the first year 1 or 2 at best litters, just because there was too many animals that were immature. There were too and unlikely to survive being dropped on the ground. There was too many animals that were related, and the available male to female ratio was poor. And I was right. We had a single reproductive event in the first year, and there was a single litter of pups. Apparently 5 pups were born to wolves that they then were calling the Copper Creek Pack. And proximity to livestock and the lack of compliance with the non-lethal program immediately created problems. These guys had established a boneyard, and the wolves were in the boneyard. They actually had trail cams documenting they were basically feeding wolves beef and teaching them what was on the menu. And sure enough, they started attacking livestock, and the rancher who was involved in that particular area and that problem was just recalcitrant. He did not want to really work with Colorado Parks and Wildlife or the different groups like Working Circle that are trying to provide resources and knowledge to these guys to help them coexist in a positive way. Instead, they just want to scream and cry and go to the Game Commission. And I attended Game Commission meetings, and I mean, you've never seen a bigger bunch of crybabies in your life for grown men who seem, who think that they're big and tough. They embarrass themselves at these meetings. It was a pathetic thing to see. I'm just being brutally honest as somebody who was watching the meetings and wasn't even permitted to testify because they weren't allowing commentary from people over the internet, and I'm out here in California. So anyhow, but I'm from Colorado. Anyhow, so because of all this complaining and because of the ranchers' unwillingness to do any kind of a coexistence approach, eventually Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and I just think they capitulated, and I think it's pathetic. It's a huge mistake on their part. They've set themselves up and the wolf recovery in the state to ridiculous oversight and scrutiny where none needed to occur. They should have demanded that this guy do better, and if he didn't do better, then he should just sustain the losses or he should quit the business, as far as I'm concerned. But instead, they decided to trap this family of wolves and then decide what they're going to do with them later. Well, so they trapped the male, the female, and 4 of the 5 pups At first they thought they got everybody, but then they realized there was still a fifth pup out there. They're not saying, now the male died shortly after being captured, and I think that I've got a public records request in, actually, to try to understand, because they're claiming that he was injured and in poor condition and that he subsequently died. But they haven't specified publicly the nature of the injuries or the cause of death. And it's my suspicion, it's likely that the wolf is in poor condition in late summer when you've got 2 adults feeding 5 pups. That's pretty typical for them to be in poor condition. Late summer is the leanest time of the year for wolves anyway. All the easy gettings are done. All of the young that were infirm and easy pickings are off the landscape. All the animals that were weakened over the last winter are done. Most of the carrion that is winter kill is done. And if you're just 2 wolves and you're feeding voracious puppies, sure, you're going to be pretty scrawny before things pick up for you as winter kicks in. So I expect any wolf to be in poor condition, but he died. My suspicion is he was badly injured in a trapping incident. Colorado has not admitted that, but hopefully a public records request. I've also submitted a second request, which is that that an independent necropsy is conducted, because I'm sure a state biologist did the one, and at this point I just don't trust anything CPW has to say, because I don't think they're being transparent with the public, because they are messing up this reintroduction. As somebody that's got a lifetime invested in working with and understanding wolf biology, you almost would have to do this intentionally wrong to do it any worse than these guys have done it. It's super disappointing how badly managed this process has been from the outset. And I'm sure I'm not making any friends in Colorado when I say this, but I'm just observing it, and I just think that decision making has been poor. Pretty much from the outset, like just the animals they accepted. Some of them had a history of preying on livestock, which set everybody up for failure, because of course now you're giving the ranchers a reason to be pissed before it even starts. It would have been better if they couldn't get the wolves that they needed, the right wolves, to have got the governor to grant an extension and set the wolves up for success, instead of what they did, which is 100% setting the wolves up for failure. So I'm really disappointed, but it now gets to, as tragic as this story is so far, it gets worse. So the state finally admits, we screwed up, and there's a puppy still out there. And a 6-month-old pup has 0 chance, pretty much, of surviving the winter on its own. And they tried for about a month to trap this pup. They were unsuccessful, and so they've written off their efforts and basically left this other puppy, whose family they've trapped and put in captivity. And now this puppy is pretty much consigned to starvation and death, because Colorado is incompetent. They can't trap a single puppy. I'm kind of incredulous that these guys, these government professionals, wolf managers in the state, there are dozens of guys, including a friend of mine, Carter Niemeyer, who know what they're doing, who could definitely spend a few days out there on the landscape and get a single starving puppy and get him to safety. But no, Colorado, for whatever reason, they're just not capable. Really disappointed. Sorry, guys, if I'm pissing you off. Maybe it should inspire you to do better instead of get angry. So yeah, there's a pup out there, probably dead already, but if not, and this is particularly close to my heart simply because I've got an animal exactly the same age, and he's a puppy. He's a puppy. He doesn't know how to kill big food. The fact that he persisted as long as he did is only because right now is hunting season, and there's gut piles everywhere, and there's also down livestock in boneyards. So he's been kind of making a living that way. But the minute that hunting becomes the key to survival, he's going to be doomed, because it takes years. It takes years for these guys to develop the skills necessary to kill big game, and mostly they have to learn those skills by observing their family members and figuring it out. To just randomly figure out how to bring down big game. In Colorado, it's mostly elk, which aren't that easy. Mooney, we're going to go this way. Mooney, no, come on. We're going to go this way. Come on. We'll be out here in the dark for a while, which I don't mind. All right, so, yeah, it's a big mess. So the Copper Creek Pack, the only breeding family group in Colorado in about 100 years, has been destroyed because of recalcitrant ranchers and state management incompetence. They're going to do another release of, I think, 15 wolves here in the next few months. I hope it goes better. I pray it goes better. But given their history so far, I am not optimistic. This has not been conducted with the same professionalism and rigor and skill as other reintroductions in the past, which have really been conducted by true wolf specialists. I'm not sure who the guys are in Colorado, but so far it has not been awesome. And they should be pretty damn embarrassed that they've let the situation devolve to this, where the Game Commission and ranchers are running roughshod over the project and setting the wolves up for failure and bad press. It just could have been done so much better. But we'll see. I'm sure my mic isn't picking it up, but I'm a mile as a crow flies. So that's a wolf long distance call. I've been listening to this music for almost 50 years, and I still love it every second. That's your family singing. Come on, let's keep going. So yeah, they're getting some more wolves. Hopefully those wolves will have a better shot. Colorado's a great place for wolves. They should do wonderful there. And they just need to instill cooperation on the part of the livestock industry. I mean, these guys are going to have to get used to it. They're not going to kill every wolf that causes a problem. They're just not. And so if you're a smart operator, learn how to work with the animals. The best thing you could do, I'm speaking directly to the ranchers here now, and either they're still watching and aren't just pissed off at me, is if you're a good operator, wolves are territorial. You just got to teach the wolves that are in your grazing allotments that beef isn't on the menu, and they'll keep the other wolves out. I mean, you can actually leverage their behavior to your benefit if you're a good steward. I mean, these practices have been established in other places. The Wood River Wolf Project in Idaho has proven, I mean, sheep are way more vulnerable to wolves than cattle are. And they've had a history of, I think, maybe 17 years without a wolf-related loss. It just takes work. And if you're a rancher, you got to be willing to do the work, because otherwise you're just going to be filing depredation claims and mad when they can't prove it's wolves. So you guys have a choice. You can either figure out how to coexist, or you can be one of those ranches that people don't like. And it's just not that hard. I'm sorry. It's just not that hard. Anyhow, so that's the Colorado wolf report. I wish it was a better report. I'm losing the light from my phone now, so I'll probably wrap this up. But stay tuned for more wolf updates about what's going on in other states here through the rest of Wolf Awareness Week. So this is Oliver the Wolf Guy in the twilight. Sign in, out. Hope you guys are all well. Thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe. I hate shilling, but yeah, that's what you gotta do. If you enjoy my content, and I'm launching some membership options here pretty quick, so stay tuned for that. And they'll have some really fun and interesting perks that only someone like me could provide. So thanks, guys. Happy howls. We'll see you on the next one.